Welcome to the Page Turnerz podcast, where book lovers unite to celebrate the enchanting world of fiction. With your host, Paul A. Brooks. In each episode, we'll dive into the captivating realms of storytelling, exploring the pages that transport us to magical places and introduce us to unforgettable characters. In each episode, we'll embark on a creative expedition through the minds of seasoned and emerging writers to unravel the mysteries and unveil the passion that fuels their stories. Join us on this odyssey through the pages and pixels of imagination, where words become worlds and stories illuminate our lives. So, pour yourself a coffee and immerse yourself in discussions about writing, gripping plots, heroes and villains, and the sheer joy of escaping into a well-crafted story.
On today's show, I'm talking to Erinn Keala, author of I Promise to Be Better, a traveller, nutrition and fitness coach, marketer, travel blogger, as well as being an author. We talk about how she found the time to write her book. Now, I Promise to Be Better is based on true events. It's a story that takes a very dark turn and not for the faint-hearted. But reviewers have called her book a visceral, powerful, deeply meaningful, touching portrait of toxic love. This is author of I Promise to Be Better, Erinn Keala. Hi, Erinn, and thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the show today. Now, you are in sunny Hawaii. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, I am. I am in sunny Hawaii. It's great to meet you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I said before we sort of came on camera, I've been sort of looking forward to meeting you anyway, because I've read the start of your book. It's powerful stuff. And we'll talk about that kind of as we go through. But what I want to do before we start actually is kind of talk about all the other things that you do as well, because there's a long list of stuff that you do on your website, which there'll be a link to in the description for this. So it says on your website, you're a dog mum. Well, okay. A traveller, nutrition and fitness coach, and you write a travel blog, and you're an author as well. I mean, wow.
I'm doing too many things.
you think you spread yourself too thin. So, and it says on your travel blog, actually, which again, I'll put the link to because it's really good, that you have kind of travelled, it seems like virtually all the way across Europe and into Asia as well. And you said a moment ago before we came on again that you kind of stayed in Germany for a while. Have you got any plans to kind of go back there and travel other places in Europe, if you have?
Oh, I certainly hope so, yes. So I had the unique privilege to spend almost the entirety of my 20s living in Germany. I'm originally from the United States, and I lived in Germany from age 20 to 29 and traveled to more than 30 countries while I was there. So it was just an incredible, incredible experience. And I am obviously back in the United States now in Hawaii, but am I open to moving back to Germany or another foreign country one day? Absolutely. I want to see so much of the world, and I'm definitely not done, but I am happy where I'm at right now.
Where does that passion for travel come from then? Is that just sort of
I just feel like traveling awakens a part of you that other things don't. I feel like every time I travel somewhere new, I love learning new things. I love experiencing new cultures, trying new foods, meeting new people. It just really broadens my horizons. And I feel like, that time spent in Europe, traveling throughout Europe for almost a decade, it just has given me a different view of life and everything. So I feel like when you kind of get stuck in one place for too long, you don't get to experience different viewpoints and different cultures. And so it really does expand your mindset a lot. And a lot of my book talks about that too a little bit. I know we'll get into that, but I do talk about some travels in my book. So that was kind of a fun thing to add in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine actually traveling around. It's almost kind of like you're doing your research naturally. I mean, for me, my world is here. It's just in this little box, so to speak, and Google as well, which is on this screen, which you can't see. So, I'm kind of fairly limited, sort of in a cabin, if you like. And we've talked about with other people, sometimes you get cabin fever as a writer because it's just you and your mind and what's going on in your head. So it can be quite a sort of a lonely thing. But I can imagine, as you've said, if you're kind of out and about and meeting new people and that sort of stuff, you're kind of absorbing new information, new experiences that can potentially come out in your writing. Have you found that?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I feel like I grow a little bit as a person with each new place that I go to. And so um, it just gives me a broader mindset when it comes to writing too. I kind of dove into part of my book explaining the settings where I am and just, the beauty that you experience when you're traveling through places like Germany and through Italy, and how eye-opening it is to see some of this history that maybe you've only read about in textbooks and then you
Yeah.
experience in person, and it's incredible. So yeah, I do feel like it just kind of gives me more of a sense of appreciation for my surroundings. And hopefully that comes through in my writing. I did intend for it to.
Yeah, it certainly does on your blog, which is on this screen. So yeah,
Yeah.
it certainly does on there, which is great. And I love to sort of learn about new cities and new towns and
Uh-huh.
new cultures as well, actually, because
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Take the difference between the British culture and the American culture. Yes, we speak the same language, but culturally there are some very distinct differences.
Yeah.
When you're trying, as a writer, when you're trying to write to and for an American audience, it's quite hard work sometimes, because you guys do
Yes.
some weird things. um, and then vice versa, I'm sure you could say the same.
Mhm.
Yeah, so no, it's great, and I think that's really good. I like to be able to. I do a lot of research for my stuff, for my books anyway, and I've been looking at your Instagram and your stuff on your blog, and there are some great pictures of towns and cities that you've been to. So I actually love them. The photos are great. Who takes your photos?
Honestly, it's usually my husband just using an iPhone.
Oh wow! Okay, so there you
Yeah,
go. Yeah, I mean
yeah.
that's all you need, really, isn't it? That's fantastic. But he's pretty good at it anyway, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. I mean, some occasionally he'll bring out a real camera, but yeah, honestly, a lot of those photos are just good photos shot on an iPhone.
yeah. That's exactly that's all you need, really. So,
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about your kind of fitness and nutrition side of things as well,
Sure.
because you run, is it what is it? So one-to-one coaching kind of
Yeah.
your corporate
So
clients. Go on, sorry, talk about
yeah,
that a little bit.
it's a little bit, honestly, that part of me is a little bit on the back burner right now. Fitness and nutrition has always been a huge pillar of my life, and it still is. I'm just not actively coaching in the sense that I used to. So for a while, that was a great side hustle for me. I would work one-on-one with clients. I would also offer some corporate wellness sessions, so briefings to larger teams. Right now, I'm a lot more focused on my full-time job, which is also with a fitness company. So
Mhm.
I kind of got to take, for a while I was splitting my time between my career and my passion, and I was able to merge those two. So now my career gets to be where my passion is, which is really good for me. So yeah, I'm not doing as much coaching as I have in the past, but I am still working full time in the fitness industry, and it is a big part of who I am.
Yeah, that's great. Again, it's best of both worlds, really, isn't it? I suppose I'm doing the same because, as we said earlier, I never shut up. I just keep talking. So it's really nice just to be able to talk to other authors about writing and their books and all that sort of stuff, which is kind of my passion. And this is kind of like my day job, if you like, although it is
Yeah.
9 o'clock at night now. But it's it's such a pleasure to be able to speak to other authors about writing and their passions as well, particularly. And I think we said before we sort of started this recording is that you do marketing for them as well. Is that right?
I do, yes. So my full-time career is in marketing. I do marketing for a fitness company. They build outdoor gyms and manufacture custom fitness equipment. So they're producing some very cool stuff, and I'm very excited to be a part of the team. They're called Beaver Fit, and I do all of their marketing for the United States. But we also have a branch in the UK, so I get to work closely with my UK marketing counterparts. So I know exactly what you're talking about when you say the differences
Yeah,
can
yeah,
sometimes be a challenge, but
yeah.
we always make it work.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff, really, isn't it? Those differences,
Mhm.
sometimes they're huge, or sometimes they're tiny. You can kind of get around them, but yeah, I
Uh-huh.
know exactly what you're talking about because you guys use some weird words that What can I say?
I think we both do.
I think we do, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, we do, yeah. So the marketing side of things, are you talking about doing social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X,
Yeah.
or that kind of
Yes,
stuff?
I do a lot of our external public facing communications. So social media, website, email newsletters, blogs, press releases, all of the kind of written communication that comes out of the brand is where my strong suit is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose most of those things that you just mentioned we use as for marketing our books essentially,
Exactly.
because
Yes.
really it is, as you said, it's about communication, isn't it? It's the written word. People want to read and learn about who we are as the authors, and those are some often the best ways to do it, which is why probably your Instagram is as good as it is. I'm going to leave a link to your Instagram in the description as well, because people need to go and check that out, which is fine. So I suppose the question then is really, after now you're doing all of that, how did you find time to write I Promise to Be Better, which is your debut novel?
Uh-huh. Yes. Good question. It was a lot of weekends and evenings, and it honestly, if I'm being honest, it took me about 4 years to finish my book
Okay.
because I just really didn't have a lot of time to devote to it. There was a period where, so my husband, he is in the Air Force and he was gone for 6 months 1 year, and that gave me a lot of time to write because I was alone at the house. So I had a lot more focus. So I got a lot of writing done during that 6 month period. And then I would kind of just put aside some time on Sundays to write. There have been times where, for example, my work, we have like a 2 week holiday stand down where nobody works for 2 weeks around the holidays. So that was my cue to write for 8 hours a day instead, since I wasn't working. So,
Yeah.
I just have found pockets of time here and there to make it work. But it's definitely not an easy task to write and publish a book. So that's why it kind of took me several years.
Yeah, you're that's right. I mean, I've spoken to people who've taken 10 years plus to,
Mhm.
to, to get their books done. And for me, I suppose probably about 18 months is
Mhm.
kind of the sort of average amount of time that it takes for me to get a book out. But again, it depends on the length of the book and all of that
Yeah.
sort of stuff, really. I
Mhm.
tend to write these great big chunky books that are 500 or 600 pages long. So that, yeah, they do take a bit of time to do.
Yeah.
So your book is contemporary women's fiction. That's right, isn't it? Is that
Yes. Mhm.
the genre that it's in? Um, Now, I mean, the title, I Promise to Be Better.
Mhm.
And we'll get into what the book's about shortly. But it strikes me, and when I was kind of reading through what was on Amazon, and everyone should go and read that. It strikes me that it was a book that you had to write. Was it something
Mhm.
in you that you felt that, right, I need to get this out and the world needs to know? Is that kind of how it happened for you?
You are exactly right. To be honest, I never had an aspiration to publish a book or to be an author until I had a story to tell.
Yeah.
So my book, it is a fictional story. However, it is based on true events, and those true events are from my life, from a former relationship that I was in, and that relationship, it left me with a great deal of trauma that I had to sort through.
Hmm.
And so one of the ways that I started to heal my trauma was through writing, which was actually encouraged to me by a therapist several years ago, to sort through some of my worst memories by writing them out on paper.
Right.
And through that practice, it provided a good sense of healing. It provided a lot of catharsis. And I got to a point eventually where I had written somewhere between 10 and 20,000 words of just memories. And I thought, I could turn this into something. I
Yeah.
could turn the story into a novel. And I decided, because I had the story to tell, I fictionalized it, I added elements to it, I turned it into a story that could be published, and that's how it happened. It was never really like I'm gonna write a book. It was more so I'm writing to sort through some things that I'm dealing with, and the final product I felt was worthy of publishing.
Yeah, absolutely, and absolutely it is. I mean, even the title itself, it suggests someone who's in pain,
Mhm.
and I think you come from what you said and from what I understand of what the book's about and the sort of things that happened, that it is very much a healing journey that kind of goes
Mhm.
through. It kind of I felt like that. I really felt it, And I said people need to go and read that on certainly the part on Amazon and pick it up because it's got some fantastic reviews as well,
Thank you.
which is amazing for a debut novel. It's absolutely really fantastic stuff. So you said it took you about 4 years to write it. When your husband was away and you did sort of discipline yourself to do it,
Uh-huh.
did you sort of come up with a writing routine where you got up in the morning and did X number of words or X number of hours? How did you write it? Because people are always interested in not
Yeah.
only the story but how you write it.
I would love to say that I was that organized, but the truth is, it was like whenever I had a pocket of time or whenever I had inspiration, I would just pull out my laptop and start writing. And I never really had a target word count to hit per day or per session. Something that I did find incredibly helpful, and I know that there's a lot of opinions about like where you should write your manuscript. I, as a first-time author who doesn't really know what I'm doing at the time, I used Google Docs. And so I had that on my phone with me. So when I
So
was
do
sitting down,
I. Google Docs. I love Google Docs. And you're the second person that has said that to me and admitted it freely and openly. Google Docs. We love Google Docs.
it
Sorry.
couldn't have been more convenient because I had my manuscript with me on my phone at all times. So
Yeah.
when I was sitting waiting at the doctor's office, I was pulling out my phone and writing. When I was, sitting on an airplane, I had the offline version downloaded on my phone and I was adding to it during my flight. So it was like wherever I found those pockets, I was able to just instantly whip out my phone and start typing things. And of course, I had to then go back on my laptop later and fix all the formatting and correct anything that was spelled wrong or just, incorrect from like my rushed thoughts. But having that immediate access to my manuscript was very important for me during my writing process because I was so scattered with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely fine. For me, I mean, I write mostly on the sort of big screen that's in front of us here now, is where my manuscript is. But I also have a laptop, and in the summer, in the British summer, which doesn't last very long, I found a place last year. It's called Castle Ashby House. It's a big stately home built in the 1500s or something like that. Absolutely stunning. They've got sort of an orangery and a huge garden. They opened a new cafe there, and there's a picture of it actually on my Instagram. Uh, and I would spend a couple of weeks up there writing just a cup of coffee, left alone outside with my laptop. Off I went. Um,
Lovely.
it was absolutely beautiful. Got quite a lot done there as well, actually,
Yeah.
as well as doing people watching and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely beautiful. I understand what you're saying about writing as and when you can, because I've tried to be structured, and I've said this before. I've tried to do a set number of words per day or a number of hours per day, but I just can't do that. I'm a little bit too. I'm a little bit more impulsive, like you. When the words are there, they've got to come out, and it doesn't
Uh-huh.
where or when they've got to come out. So I'm kind of with you on that. So would you say that you're more of a pantser then than a plotter?
I would say, yeah, in some ways, yes. So my story, because it's based on true events, I kind of always knew how it was going to present itself. I knew what the events would be. I knew what the ending would be, obviously. But when it came to the way that I was going to present these things and, the emotion that I was going to convey and the quotes that I was going to use, those things were very much like a pantser type of reaction. I would get ideas while I was driving and I would like have to whip out like a quick voice note on my phone like to just like say to record what was in my head, or I would get thoughts right before going to bed at night because my mind is always so active when I'm trying to fall asleep, and I would just think about like, oh, I really really want to write about this thing, and I'd have to type it down into a note on my phone really quick. So yeah, it was like when it came to the sculpting things together, I was definitely a pantser. I didn't write things in order. Like I didn't start at the beginning and work my way chronologically to the end of the book. I wrote some of the final chapters first. I wrote some of the beginning chapters later. I wrote some of the middle chapters, like everything. I always knew the general flow of what the novel was going to be, but I kind of tackled like some of the easier parts first. And then I went to the parts that I knew were going to be harder to write, and I did those last. So it was a little bit all over the place for a while. And I know my writing journey is probably not similar to many other people's, but just being honest, it was a little bit all over the place, and I'm really happy with how it all came together.
Yeah. Did you find then that as it was sort of, I was going to use the word chaotic, but that's not quite the
Uh-huh.
right word. Um, as it didn't have, it wasn't kind of a linear journey, so to speak.
Yeah.
Did you find that elements of it changed when you kind of needed to sort of start pulling all the pieces together?
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like I wrote and then rewrote and then rewrote. And then like every time I read it, I was rewriting pieces. For the most part, I mean, the events in my book, they're all based in truth. So I wasn't like making up new events, so to speak, but the way that I wanted to convey those events definitely changed. The language that was used, the dialogue that was used, the emotions that were described. Every time I read it, I kind of had another level of like writing that I wanted to put into it.
Yeah, yeah. So take us through, I promise to be better then, in terms of the story without kind of giving too much away. I mean, I think people can kind of already know what the story's about, but um, describe some of the characters that you've used, the fictitious side of it particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, over to you. Tell us about the book.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so just a heads up, there are some dark themes covered in this book. I'm obviously not going to speak at length to any of those topics, but just in case anyone could potentially be triggered, I will talk a little bit about how the book covers domestic abuse, cheating, infidelity, things like that. So the book follows the love journey of teenage Emily. So the book starts when she's 16 years old and her boyfriend Shane. And the pair get together when she's 16 and he's 22. So right off the bat, there's kind of this imbalanced relationship with an age gap. And the story goes on to explore just how complicated a toxic relationship can be. So for Emily, it's her first experience with love. She doesn't have the greatest role models in her life to know what a healthy relationship looks like. She has grown up with divorced parents, an absent father, and she doesn't really know what healthy love is. So she follows the lead of someone who is older and more experienced, who unfortunately leads her down a very dark path. And so as the novel goes on, the novel actually covers a 7-year time span, which is a lot to condense into one novel.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, we see Emily experience some very hard times. The relationship becomes very manipulative, very toxic. There's an element of narcissism and gaslighting, and eventually infidelity and abuse. So it does dive into some very heavy topics, but my goal there was to be as open and vulnerable as possible with what it looks like when you're in the throes of a relationship gone wrong, and just how complicated it can be when you find yourself in that situation. I think there's a lot of people out there who immediately wonder, if your husband or if your boyfriend or your significant other of whoever shape or gender or form, if they're abusive to you, why don't you just leave? Why are you sticking around? That's a very common question. And
Mm.
it is extremely hard to understand the complexity and the intricacy of being in a relationship like that until you are in it, because it is very isolating and very confusing. So through my book, I wanted to convey just that battle, that internal battle, that isolation, that confusion, and ultimately that goal to finding yourself and finding your strength and finding your empowerment. Um, so without giving anything away, yes, you will go through Emily's 7-year journey through a very toxic relationship, and the book will make you angry. It will make you sad. But I do want to say, without a ginormous spoiler, like obviously since it's based on my life and I'm doing well, the book has a positive ending. So
Yeah.
you can feel comfortable knowing that much. But
Yeah.
yes, it will take you through some dark moments for sure.
Yeah, I would imagine actually that the thinking about Emily herself, it's almost as if, and through the title, I promise to be better. It's almost as if she is taking the blame for everything on herself. That's kind of when I first read it. I mean, things start going wrong from her from page one. So, it feels like she's blaming herself, and I can understand what you've said about it being complicated and not as straightforward as it would first seem.
Yeah.
So yeah, would you agree with that? That she's kind of taken the blame for what's gone wrong, and the things that are happening to her. She's taken the blame for that herself.
You're exactly right. Yeah, there is so much manipulation that happens in the relationship that Emily does take on a huge portion of the blame for why the relationship isn't working. And the title, I Promise to Be Better, it is a theme that is woven throughout the book.
Yeah,
So almost immediately, you see Emily start to feel like she needs to be better, like the things in her life aren't working because she isn't doing this or that, or she isn't good enough at this or that. And so it's this theme that really weaves through the chapters of the book, and it gets used in different contexts, and all the way up until the end, that theme is very relevant. So yeah, it really, there's even an element of on the other side too, when the toxic person does something really bad, typically the way that they win the victim back over is to promise to be better. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I promise I won't do it again. I'm sorry that I cheated on you. I promise I won't do it again. So there's an element of this I promise to be better theme that is going on throughout the book,
yeah.
on both sides. And so, yeah, I like that you brought that up.
Yeah, as I said to you right when I first read the title, you can just feel it. It's almost as if the title is just telling you exactly what's going to happen, and which, of course, that's great. That's exactly as it should do, which is fantastic. I mean, some of the reviews, I mean, it's got quite a few, but some of the reviews, I've written some down here. I've just got four out of
Mhm.
the many that are there. But it says, I inhaled this book from start to finish. So, that immediately says to me, this is just a book that you can't put down. The story is so compelling. And I would have to agree with that from page one. It just grabs you. And I wanted to read more right as I kind of got to the end of it and thinking, oh, no, don't stop me there. Tell me more. Visceral, powerful, touching portrait of toxic love. And you kind of just described that exactly. Courageous and deeply meaningful. When you wrote it, and when you sort of felt that, right, yeah, I need to write this, did you find it hard to write, or as you said, it was part of a kind of the therapy to help you heal? Did you find it easy, or this might be a silly question, but was it easy or was it hard to write?
Yeah, there was absolutely an element of hardness when I wrote this. And that's kind of why I jumped around in the writing process, because I
Mm,
knew there were scenes that I really didn't want to write.
yeah, yeah.
Because it's a deeply, deeply personal story. And there were parts of it that, when I started writing it, I hadn't processed that trauma. So I was processing the trauma in real time as I was writing it. So the book was I mean, to back up slightly, when I started going to therapy, some of these events in my life I had never told anyone about at all. So I had some secrets that I had been, they shouldn't have even been secrets, but I had these events that had happened in my life that I just didn't feel comfortable sharing with anyone.
Mm,
And it took me many years to start sharing those things with someone, and that was my therapist. And even with her, I found that I couldn't share these things with her. I couldn't speak them out loud. My body would start to just go into panic mode. It was I was experiencing symptoms of PTSD. I couldn't move through talking about the experiences with her with spoken words. And so that's when she encouraged me to write, because she thought writing might be an easier practice. And man, was she right.
yeah, yeah,
It was difficult. I won't say that it was easy to just spill these words onto my laptop, and I cried a lot, which was necessary. I think it really helped me move through some of the emotions and some of the memories. And with the element of making it a fictional story, I also got to kind of write some of the things that, maybe I didn't know how I felt in the moment, but looking back on it, I could put voice to some of those emotions. Um, and so writing it, it helped me process those experiences. And it just provided this incredible sense of catharsis.
mm,
And it was hard. I mean, it was probably one of the hardest. I consider this one of like the hardest things I've done to date. But also one of my greatest accomplishments because just the burden that it lifted off of my shoulders when I got to release it into the world and let other people read it. I mean, that was terrifying, but it was just this incredible release, and just a very cathartic experience.
Yeah, yeah, I can completely agree. I can understand that totally because one of the other reviews, it says it's a page turner and it's a must read. And I think because you've been so brave, so open, almost worn your heart on your sleeve when you're talking about it, and writing does give you that outlet.
Mhm.
It does make it for such a good read. Where did you get the characters from? The fictitious characters. Where did they come from?
So I mean the characters are, besides changing names, the characters are pretty much representative of the true people in the story. So obviously, Emily is myself, and I'll never name anyone else in the book, but those characters are all based on the true people in my life, the true relationship, the true best friends, the true, false friends, the experiences. I pulled heavily on, those personalities that I had actually encountered in my life, and I just changed up all the names,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah. I think that's really good. I was talking to Dolores Batten. She wrote a memoir that has a sort of I suppose a similar journey to yours, similar kind of storylines. Um, Storyline is not the right word, but similar sort of experiences. And she said, it's allowing that opportunity to spill it out onto the page
Yeah.
has given her the opportunity to move forwards and move on, and that's such a wonderful thing to happen.
Yeah.
And seriously, I mean, I'm not just saying this; everybody should just go and grab your book and read it because
Yeah.
it's so fantastic, and I applaud your bravery to be
Thank
able to
you.
do it. I'm not sure that I would be able to. But I think it's a wonderful read. So are you writing anything now? Have you got plans to do fiction, complete fiction, and sort of take their stories
Yeah.
further forwards using the same characters or different, more writing? Any sort of ideas?
I know it's such an interesting question because, when I published this book, I thought this will be the only book I ever publish because I only have one story to tell. Um, but since I've published it, I've had multiple people tell me, I want to read the next book you put out.
Yeah,
Are you going to write more novels? Because I would love to read them. I've had people tell me that. And to me, it's really crazy for me to hear those things because I never, even up until publishing this book, I never considered myself an author. I just considered myself someone with a story to tell. And so for people to tell me that they want to continue reading my works
yeah,
is crazy. So at the moment, no, I don't have any plans for any further novels, but I don't want to say like never, never say never. I don't know what could come in the future. Time is the biggest constraint. I love my full-time job. I also volunteer. I also try to have a social life. I try to travel. So writing is just one of those things where it's like, I don't know that I have the time, but you never know. Maybe at some point I will. And I really appreciate that there are people out there who would read something else by me. That means a lot to me.
yeah. Yeah, they really are. I mean, I think your audience are going to force you into it. I think you're going to have to. Yeah, because I think there's an opportunity not only to potentially help you move forwards, but also to for your readers, for people who are maybe experienced and have experienced something similar, um, to learn from your experience, to learn other things, to learn new things, to help them move forwards as well. I think that's a great opportunity. Um,
Yeah.
but I can imagine, and I can see how that might be quite difficult to do. I suppose
Yeah.
because it is so visceral and so deep, everything that you've gone through, to try and then make a story, make it completely fictitious would make that quite hard, but it would be a
Yeah.
great book. I've absolutely no doubt if you got round to doing it,
Yeah.
that would
It's true. I mean, I wrote just a lot of this book just felt like so much of a diary. Um, there wasn't the element of creativity would be a struggle to like come up with a whole new story that isn't based, coming from directly from my heart. So it's an interesting thought. It's funny because some people have said, the people who know me personally know that now in my life, I am in a very, very healthy marriage, a very loving and healthy marriage. And so a lot of people have said, I want you to write the story of like your happy ending and your new love. And I'm like,
Yeah,
that is so funny because like to me, I'm like, why would you want to read about that? But
but
I hear
people
it, like
do.
I hear it from people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. I think that'd be a great thing. The next chapter, the success, the happy ending. Everyone wants that. I think that's great.
Sure.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. There we go. We've brainstormed it. That's what you got to write now. That's it. Yeah, that's
No
great.
promises.
No, right, okay. Well, look, listen. So, where is the book available right now? Is it just on Amazon, or are you sort of wide, or where is it?
Yeah, so Amazon is the best and easiest place to get it. I've got the ebook on there and the paperback, and it's also available on Kindle Unlimited. I also published through Ingram Spark, which means that local bookstores and libraries and retailers, they can order my book to stock it on their shelves. I don't know that any have. My book has been out for about a month, and so far I am not aware of any stores selling it, but I'm actively working on that. I'm trying to reach out to some bookstores, some libraries, and just kind of expand the reach of this book as much as possible. But
Yeah.
for any readers listening, it is on Amazon, both ebook and paperback.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Erin, thank you so much for coming on today. Let's wrap things up there because I think we'll leave it on a high like that. That's absolutely fantastic, and I would encourage people to go and read and buy your book. Absolutely, because it is one of those books that just grabs you, and you can't help but want more. So, thank you for writing it, and thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really happy to just have the chance to speak about it. And I'm very grateful for the time and the support, and look forward to hopefully meeting some more readers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And listen, you must let us know when you do write your next one. You must reach out and let me know so we can get you to come on. We'll talk some more.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Erin. See you soon. Bye bye.
See you.
Thank you for joining us on another captivating episode of the Page Turnerz podcast. We hope you enjoyed delving into the pages with us, discovering new stories, and revisiting beloved classics. If you're as passionate about books as we are, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback keeps us bringing you fascinating discussions, author interviews, and book recommendations. Remember, the adventure never ends when you have a book in hand. Until next time, keep turning those pages and let the magic of storytelling continue to inspire your imagination. Happy reading.